Today, I wanted to bring through the intentionality in which you cultivate a personal practice. So, our practices, the things that allow us to find our center, that bring us home to ourselves, that show us ourselves, are some of the most important things that you can do for your health. Because the number one cause of everything is from stress. And we are only stressed out when we get taken away from who we truly are. And so, whatever practice you're cultivating, whether it's a yoga practice, whether it's a breathwork practice, whether it's a meditation practice, whether you have like nature based practices where you go out and you commune with the plants, like we are all going to have our own really unique practices that allow us to find more and more of ourself coming home to ourself. And so there's people in our lives that allow us to feel like this. There's, we go to them and we are sitting with them and we're listening to their words and we're just in the atmosphere of them. And it just feels so good on our systems. Like we just feel like they're our home. And so when we're cultivating practice in this way, what we're really doing is we're remembering what it feels like to be home with ourselves. And the more that we can anchor this into our bodies, the more that we can constantly feel at home within ourselves, we will come into contact with the outer world and we will find these little pockets in our lives that feel like home. And so that's when we really come to understand this idea of resonance. Like when we bring our body into resonance, which is if you're playing music, like it's the tone, and like it's the tone of you, it's the tone of your soul. And when you find this resonance within yourself, it's easier to right away be reflected that from people around you, and to also be feeling the polarity of that, where some people just aren't for you. And so the personal practice and the intentionality of your personal practice is essentially what is tuning you to your soul. And this is the most important piece. And so if you have developed like a yoga practice, like I love my yoga practice so much. I have been using it for 15 years every single day to bring more and more of myself home to myself. And since we're human beings moving about the world, being in a body, getting disrupted all the time, what we come to realize is that like the practice is essentially like cleaning our house. Like we have to go in and clean our house because we're just going to make a mess. Like that is part of being a human being in a body. We're going to have emotions, we're going to be in experiences that are less than ideal. And it's really just, these are just learning tools for us so that like we quickly recalibrate back to our center. And so when I first started doing yoga, and you can reflect on your own practices when you started your own practices, it's very surface level, right? You start moving your body and you come into your body and you're like, oh, this feels nice. It feels good to be here, right? You're meditating. And for the first few moments with your breath, with your body, with you inside of yourself, giving yourself the time and space, you feel like, wow, this feels really good. And then eventually, you want to go into these deeper layers where you're actually getting more out of your practice. And so what I see in, the spiritual world, or the world outside of us, is that so often we will find these little places where something like worked in a certain sense and we stay there. And we don't actually think to like go deeper or move beyond it, right? We're just like okay where we are. And we see this with like a lot of humans in the world, where it's just like the job's okay because it's working and the money's coming, and like the partner's okay because they're reliable and they're safe and they're there. Like the friend circles, it's there and it's reliable and I can always just like show up and it's always the same. But for some of us on the path, like it's just not enough to just have the things in front of us without having the depths of it, of the awakening of what it's showing to us, of having, these deeper insights coming through that are really allowing us to become more and more and more anchored in this deep sense of self, right? This sense of like, I know my purpose here and it's unwaverable. When I'm with situations that don't serve me or that are less than ideal, I'm still unwaverable and I'm unshakable and nothing can touch me because I know exactly who I am and I know exactly what I want. And this is where the intentionality comes in. And this is where your surface level practices, where you might just go to like a gym for a yoga class, it becomes not enough, right? You start to seek out more. You start to seek out better information. You start to seek out mentors that, are where you want to be, or that have a lot of insights for you, or that are giving you a lot, and you are seeing measurable change in your life. And this is where I really love using a measured yoga practice, because for me, when I found Katoni Yoga and Naveen Mishan and like all my mentors that have really led me down this path of a measured yoga practice using the proportions of your own body, right? A breathwork practice that is really designed to like open up your lungs, to flush out your organs and glands so that your body feels really good to live inside of. Like this is where the practice started to really deepen, and there was a deeper intelligence being played with. And that's what I really want to bring through here today, especially with an intentional practice, is that there is nothing on this planet, nothing in front of you that you're seeing that is arbitrary, that is random, right? Everything is by design. And so when you start to play with your body by design, you start to see that there are many measurements inside of your body that you can use in the yoga practice that are actually going to put you in the alignment that you need. That no teacher can say, like, this is the standard alignment. No, you have to use your body for that alignment, because we're all different sizes, right? But when you start to see the measurements, like when your hands are shoulder distance and they're together like this, right? When the middle fingers are touching, this is your shoulder distance. When you turn one foot and touch its inner heel, this is your hip distance. And when you start to play with all of these fits inside of your body that can be used inside of the yoga practice, in the geometry of the practice, in how you're building up the structure of your body so that your organs and glands can function, you reach a layer of depth that you had no idea existed in a mainstream yoga practice. And so what happens when we start to do this inside of the body, right? Because the body is just a communication tool for the mind, right? The body is an aspect of the mind that is reaching into every dimension, into all time and space. The mind is all things, and that's why you can think of someone and they'll call you, right? And how many times did you think of someone and that person heard you on the other end of the thought, but was too busy to hear that and listen and call you? And so there's all of these micro moments in our day-to-day with the thoughts that we're having that are creating our reality all the time. And it's creating the aspects of the body. It's creating specific pain in the body. It's creating like specific imbalances in the body, because our mind is conditioned, right? Our mind is subject to cultural conditioning, to programming. Our mind is subject to patterns it's replayed again and again. And so the limited mind, or the ego mind, is really based in like replaying patterns because it knows what to expect. But what to expect isn't actually where you're headed, because in the moment, you are at the portal of infinite potential. And so when we use the body in this intentional way with intentional practices, what we come to see is that when we align our bodies to true universal measure, which is the proportions that are alive inside of you, because you are the pattern of existence, right? As above, so below. You are the microcosm of the macrocosm. When you can play with this in your body, you are tapping into the deepest alignment you can ever tap into. And what flows from that, what flows from physical alignment, because everything replicates throughout the field, right? The physical alignment is your soul alignment. It is the alignment of the mind. It is the alignment of you on your path. It is the alignment of you with the people around you that you're here to call in, that you're here to create something with, that you're here to build heaven on earth with. And so eventually it becomes not enough to just do a practice based on your feelings, or based on like flowing and moving and feeling like, what does it feel good in my body? Because oftentimes, think of those moments in your life where there is big change coming and you didn't know how expansive it was going to be, but it's so uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable to be in the midst of change. And you can reflect back and see now, like, I had to go through that for the beauty that I have now, And so when we actually work in the physical body, when we do a practice this way, though it might not feel good initially, what we're cultivating is a deep sense of resiliency within change. What does it feel like to be uncomfortable in a posture, to be in a posture differently than you've ever been before? And can you sit there, and can you stay there, and can you watch your thoughts? Can you watch your mind, right? Can you see what is appearing on the surface of the vast consciousness that is you, and the beliefs and the stories and the programming that you have? Do you want to quit? Do you want to give up? Do you want to do something else, right? Are you there to stay? Are you ready to feel what it feels like when your whole life changes? And so a lot of times we approach practice with this idea that like, oh, it's like makes me feel good. And like, yes, that's amazing, right? Like we want to feel good in the body because the easier it is to be in the body, the more space you have for the deeper work, right? The more you can become available to what's around you, the more that you can fill yourself up. So your overflow, right, goes to your family, it goes to your friends, it goes to your community, right? Rather than thinking like people are taking from you. And so when we start from center and we cultivate a great health within ourselves and the ability to help ourselves when we get ill, the ability to know how to realign ourselves when we're feeling pain in our body, the ability to understand the maps within the body that are showing you deeper patterns within your subconscious, the moment you can do this, you get to meet life where you are rather than thinking that you're a victim of life or that life is attacking you or that people are attacking you or that people are judging you. Like it's all the perception that you have inside of yourself. And so the practice is a practice. Every day is a practice. Every moment is a practice. And when we approach it with that intentionality on our mat, when we show up to our yoga practice, and we know that what we're cultivating is a deep sense of understanding the self, it is so that when we're walking through life, it flows over. We start to see life around us, right, as a reflection of what we believe. And so if you look out and everyone is judgmental and rude and always attacking you, then that's happening inside of you, right? And so we cultivate more love of self on the mat, more self-forgiveness on the mat. We, look at the judgments that are arising and we hold them in love and we let them release from ourselves because we don't need to hold them. And the more we can begin to release these mistruths, right? Anything other than love, the minute we release these mistruths, the world around us will reflect our new belief system. And so this is always like us having these causes, our thoughts causing the effects that we're experiencing. And so we use the body as this physical tool, right, to better align ourselves in the mind and to better see ourselves based on what arises on the mat because we're being present with ourselves. And so if you've never been present with yourself and you're running through life and it's chaotic and hectic, like you're not going to have a sense of self. But the moment you sit on the mat, the moment you do your practice, you do your breath work, you move your body, you start to feel better. You start to move beyond the surface level, right? The layers, and you start to see truly what you believe about yourself, right? You start to gain a sense of awareness and consciousness to perceive that everything that is happening to you is for you because you have created all of it, right? And you're responsible to all of it because you're living inside of yourself. And so you have to be responsible if you desire change because change only comes from within. You cannot change anybody else. And so this intentionality behind the practice is important because you also want to choose your mentors wisely. You want to choose the people in your life wisely because everyone that you're exchanging energy with, that you cultivate energy with, right, consistently is someone that's going to be in your field also with all of these threads, right, influencing you. And so you want to have the right mentors. You want to have the people supporting you that are lifting you up, that see your highest potential, right, that reflect back to you who you are. And that when you're hard on yourself or hard on others, they reflect back to you that that's all inside of you. Like this is where, there's this purity of consciousness that gets to be developed in the practice, right? Of calling in the mentors, letting yourself be supported, letting yourself know that everyone that's in front of you is a deal that you're making. And do you want more of their energy inside of your being? Because we are the 6 people we hang out with. And so we find the teachers with the right information for us, right? We find the measurements, because everything is measured, right? Measured around you that are influencing us. And so when you learn to cultivate intentionality in your practice, when you learn to really sit inside of yourself, when you learn to observe yourself non-judgmentally, but more curiously and innocently of what is arising right now? And what is this showing to me about myself? And would I keep choosing it if I had a choice? Because you always have a choice. And at some point, when you see something enough times that isn't giving you what you want, you have a choice to let it go. You have a choice to see something new. You have a choice to have a different experience, but you have to choose it, right? And it's sometimes quite difficult to let go of the patterns that the ego has been looping because it's so safe. It knows what to expect, even if what it's going to expect is going to harm the body. Right? And this is where the beautiful discipline, the devotional discipline is required in the practice, showing up every day, right? And then watching what's changing, knowing that if your practice isn't making you a better person, if your practice isn't making you more self-aware, if your practice isn't giving you more energy, if it's not moving you into overflow, if it's not giving you the insights, if it's not igniting change, then maybe it's time to find a new practice, right? Because you only get so much time. And so if you're given a certain amount of time, what I see happen often, right, in the spiritual communities is people veer off the path and find a beautiful little cul-de-sac and stay there for a long time because it feels so good, right? Stuck in the traumas or stuck in a practice that isn't actually moving the body forward or shifting the body or, changing the pain in the body. It's just still stuck, but it feels so comfortable to be there in familiarity. Right. And so really what you want to find is you want to find the direct path to your liberation. Right. And that's going to look like a lot of change. And that's going to look like a lot shifting because the direct path to liberation is the path that is going to purify your ego to such a degree that you are going to be releasing everything that is not true. Right. And everything that is not love and everything that does not flow from the purity of your heart. And so that's a different state of consciousness than the planet has. And so again, it's a deal you make. If you only get a certain amount of time and you want to get to the end and you want to liberate your soul from this body rather than come back again and again and again, then you have to find that clear path, right? You have to find the direct path because everything else is just a distraction. All the achievements on the planet, distractions, right? Acquiring this and acquiring that and the degrees and like all the things that the world tells you to find value in are distractions because whatever begins in time, right, ends in time, in this linear time that our mind has created. But the only treasure that nobody can take from you is your own self-love, is the love that you feel inside of yourself because you are, right? And you don't have to do anything to be who you are. And that is the true love, right? The love of self, the love through the creator, the love that you're here to cultivate inside of yourself is the one thing that does not begin and end in time. And so it's the only true thing to cultivate. And yes, the other things of the world will come and go. You can have the job, you can have the relationships, you can achieve the things and have the things that you desire, but it's not from seeking and grabbing and thinking that you're not worthy and you're trying to find your worth outside of yourself, but it's from the overflow that you found inside of yourself. And it can come in, and even if it leaves, it's fine because you have that one thing, that one unshakable thing that no one can take away. And so when we speak about cultivating intentionality in your practice, like it is so much more than yoga. It is so much more than just showing up every day on your mat to feel good. Like the feeling good is a byproduct of being so deeply aligned with who you are, right? Showing up to your mat becomes like brushing your teeth. You do it because it's a necessity, right? Because if you don't do it, you feel a little sticky and gross, right? And so you will show up naturally because when you don't, you see the effects of being a little, right, dysregulated, of being a little bit out of alignment. And so we cultivate this deep intentionality because when you get there and when you play with this practice and when you play with these universal measurements, you want to show up every day. You want to become a better person every day. You want to find this worth inside of yourself so that you're never seeking outside of yourself for anything anymore. And the moment you notice yourself doing it, you can pause and stop and clear yourself so that you keep cultivating this sense of inner wholeness, right? Because we are whole when we're at home with ourselves, and we are whole when we know our truth, and we are whole when we feel the love overflowing from ourselves. And then every person we come into contact with, every experience we have is just going to be an overflow for us. It's going to be a bonus. It's going to keep showing us parts of ourselves where we're either aligned or misaligned. And then we get to keep recalibrating again and again and again. And so these are the deeper layers of the practice. Like, yes, you can do the yoga, but if you do the right yoga, if you're doing a measured yoga, this stuff will arise naturally, right? You will naturally come into deeper alignment where it just won't feel good to be misaligned anymore. It won't feel good to just agree to that job anymore just because it pays, right, your bills. Because there's a deeper meaning behind all of it. There's a deeper purpose for your soul. And what we're here to do is to reflect that light and to call all of these souls back home, right? So that we can be more of who we want to be, more of the community we desire to have, more of the experiences we desire to have with one another, which are, right, reciprocity, community, right? Being in harmony with nature, right? And this is the Garden of Eden, and it can only be cultivated within the mind. It can only be cultivated inside of the self. And this is when heaven comes to earth. And this is why we sit at the center in Taoism, heaven above and earth below, and we are in the center mediating and bringing heaven down into our earth. And so it's not about waiting until that time happens. It's about showing up to your practice with the intention of change, right? With the intention of uprooting everything that isn't serving you anymore. And when you can do this, right? And when you can begin to peel back the layers, no, it's not easy, but it's so rewarding. But it gives you the gold. It gives you the gifts of the kingdom because you're choosing every day to show up and take away from yourself, remove anything that is not love, that is not going to share your overflow with your community. And the most beautiful thing about this, all of this, is that you will always pull out a part of someone that you come into contact with. And so if you're grumpy, you can come into contact with the same person and you'll pull out their grumpiness and negativity, and you'll both talk about what's going wrong. And you can show up one day in your wholeness and meet that same person. And by you showing up in your light and your excitement, they show up there too. And you're giving them the opportunity to bring in more of their light just because you have anchored it in. And so you are always manipulating your circumstances every day. And that's why you're the magician. And so whatever experiences you want to have, find them inside of yourself, right? Whatever energy you want to bring in, find it inside of yourself, right? There is nothing free, right, in a sense on this earth until you've cultivated it within, and then it will just be reflected to you. And so that's the biggest piece, is that self-responsibility piece. You're creating all of it. So would you create this in front of you? And if you wouldn't, what can you do right now to shift that? And so we dive deeper into these layers of intentionality, of knowing that you're worthy of all of it, right? And you get to say yes to it, but you have to carve out the time, right? You have to wake up earlier. You have to give to yourself first, and you have to know that you're worthy of that, and that all the excuses that arise, right? I don't have the time. I don't want to wake up earlier. I'm going to feel more tired. This is your ego holding you back, right? This is a limited mind saying, I don't believe in you. But the truth is I know you believe in you, right? And by waking up earlier and cultivating the time, you get more energy, you get more alignment, everything starts to flow easier. And so by using the time wisely, you cultivate the time differently in your life rather than showing up, waking up in the morning, being exhausted, and not getting anything done that you desire to get done because you don't have the capacity, that you haven't cultivated first yet in your body for the day, right? And so it's just this constant realignment force every time you wake up. And so I encourage you to go into my channel, right? Go into all these videos and find one that is going to, that you're going to want to wake up for, and just do it. And just tell yourself you're going to do it every day for a week and see what happens. And so when you can start to do this and you can start to play with this and know that all the resources are here for you, right? All you have to do is show up. All you have to do is make the commitment and the effort, right? Then you will get the gold. You will start to see the results. You will start to implement more and more things, because why would you not if it's all making it better and easier and more synchronistic? So careful with the practices that you're doing, right? Know the ones that are really going to give you the gold. Know the people that you're learning from, right? Be very intentional about it because your time is so precious and you are so worthy. You're so worthy. So for more yoga videos, for more wellness, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Lots always coming in.